Most of us assume that if a house looks clean, it must feel clean too. But if that was true, we would not have a need for air purifying plants, now would we? Your floors are swept, the counters are wiped, the windows are shut against heat or cold, and everything seems just as it should. But indoor air has a way of holding on to things we do not always see. It can carry traces from furniture, paint, cleaning products, cooking, and all the ordinary materials that make up daily life. None of it is dramatic on its own, yet together it can leave a room feeling heavy, stale, or tired. This is where houseplants come in and make everything so appealing. Most air purifying plants are unassuming. They simply sit in a corner, by a window, or on a shelf, doing their quiet work while making a room feel softer and more lived in without complaining. Some of them are especially valued for how they help freshen indoor spaces, and that small contribution is often enough to change the feeling of your home. This is not about turning your living room into a jungle overnight or pretending a few pots can solve every air problem. It is simply about choosing the right plants, the kind that bring beauty, ease, and a little help where it counts most. If you were to start and stick with just one plant, the snake plant would be the most sensible one to own. Snake plants do not ask for much, which is part of their appeal. The leaves grow upright, firm, and structured, almost as if they were designed to take care of themselves. You can place a snake plant in a bright room or a slightly dim corner, and it will adjust without much complaint. Watering does not need to be frequent either. In fact, it often does better when left alone than when fussed over too much. What makes the snake plant stand out, beyond its ease of taking care of, is how steadily it goes about its work. It has been associated with filtering certain indoor pollutants like formaldehyde and benzene, substances that can come from everyday materials such as furniture and cleaning products in the background silently. Unlike most plants, the snake plant continuously releases oxygen at night. That makes it particularly suited for bedrooms, where the air can sometimes feel closed in by morning. It's not a dramatic change, but it is noticeable over time. More than anything, the snake plant offers a kind of quiet reliability. You don't have to adjust your routine around it. You give it a place, a bit of light, and occasional water, and it settles in. For anyone looking to improve their indoor space without adding complexity, it's often the plant that proves how simple this can be. If the snake plant is about quiet resilience, the spider plant feels a little more generous in how it grows. It's often one of the first plants people succeed with, especially if past attempts have not gone well, because it can withstand some level of neglect. The leaves arch outward in soft green ribbons, sometimes edged with pale stripes, and over time it begins to produce small offshoots that hang gently from the main plant. These can be left as they are or replanted, turning one plant into several without much effort. What makes the spider plant appealing is how quickly it adapts. It does well in bright, indirect light, but it will also tolerate less than perfect conditions without losing its balance. Watering is simple. It prefers to dry slightly between waterings, and it tends to show you when it needs attention without becoming fragile or demanding. What makes the spider plant stand out, beyond its ease of taking care of, is how steadily it goes about its work. It has been associated with filtering certain indoor pollutants like carbon monoxide and formaldehyde. Again, it works quietly, without any visible sign, but over time it contributes to a space that feels a little fresher and easier to live in. There's also a certain ease to having a plant that grows alongside you rather than against you. It does not require constant correction or careful timing. It settles into your routine, and before long, you begin to notice its presence not just as decoration, but as something that adds a small sense of care to the room. If you are looking for a plant that brings both presence and purpose into a room, the peace lily is often the one people turn to next. It has a way of standing out without being loud. The leaves are deep green and slightly glossy, and when it blooms, the white flowers rise gently above the foliage, simple but unmistakable. It fits easily into a living room, an office corner, or even a bedroom, adding a sense of calm that feels intentional rather than decorative. Beyond how it looks, the peace lily is known for doing more than most. It has been associated with helping reduce common indoor pollutants like benzene and ammonia, substances that can come from everyday materials such as furniture and cleaning products in the background silently. Unlike most plants, the peace lily continuously releases oxygen at night. That makes it particularly suited for bedrooms, where the air can sometimes feel closed in by morning. It's not a dramatic change, but it is noticeable over time. More than anything, the peace lily offers a kind of quiet reliability. You don't have to adjust your routine around it. You give it a place, a bit of light, and occasional water, and it settles in. For anyone looking to improve their indoor space without adding complexity, it's often the plant that proves how simple this can be. If you prefer something that feels both useful and uncomplicated, aloe vera is a natural addition. It is not a plant that tries to draw attention to itself. The leaves are thick, succulent, and structured, holding water within them, which is why it can go longer between waterings than other plants in this video. It thrives in bright light, especially near a window, and once it settles into its spot, it asks for very little beyond occasional care. What makes aloe vera stand out is that it offers something practical. The gel inside its leaves has long been used to soothe minor burns and skin irritations, so it becomes more than just a plant you keep. It becomes one you reach for when needed. That alone gives it a place in many homes. At the same time, it contributes quietly to improving indoor air. Like the others, it has been associated with helping reduce certain pollutants that build up in enclosed spaces. It does not transform the air overnight, but it plays its part, steadily and without fuss. There is a certain ease in having aloe vera because it serves more than one purpose. You're not just tending to it for appearance or atmosphere. You're keeping something that is both living and useful, something that fits naturally into daily life. Aloe vera does best when left alone more than when managed closely. Too much water can do more harm than too little, and it prefers dry soil between watering. Once you understand that balance, it becomes one of the simplest plants to live with because it does not demand attention, but it earns its place all the same. If your home has spaces that tend to feel a little damp or closed in, English ivy is worth bringing into the conversation. It grows differently from the others. Instead of standing upright, it trails. The leaves spill gently over the edge of a pot or follow the line of a shelf, giving it a softer, more relaxed presence. You can let it hang, guide it along a surface, or keep it neatly contained, depending on the space you have. English ivy has often been associated with helping reduce airborne mold, which makes it particularly useful in areas like bathrooms, kitchens, or rooms that do not get much airflow. These are the places where air can feel heavier, where moisture tends to linger a little longer than it should. The plant does not remove the problem entirely, but it contributes to a more balanced environment over time. It prefers moderate light and a bit of consistency when it comes to watering. The soil should stay slightly moist, though not overly wet. With a little attention, it settles in and begins to grow steadily, filling out its space without becoming overwhelming. There is something about its movement that changes how a room feels. Where other plants stand still, this one drapes and extends, softening edges and bringing a quiet sense of flow into the space. Like the others, it does its work without drawing attention to it. But in the right setting, especially where the air feels less than fresh, English ivy can make a noticeable difference, both in how a room looks and how it feels to spend time there. If you have a larger room or one that feels a bit dry no matter how often you open the windows, a palm can change that in a quiet but noticeable way. The areca palm, in particular, has a lightness to it that is different from the other plants. Its fronds spread outward in soft, feathery lines, creating a sense of movement even when the air is still. It does not sit heavily in a space. Instead, it opens it up, making the room feel less confined. Part of that comes from how it interacts with the air itself. The areca palm has been associated with both filtering certain indoor pollutants and adding moisture back into dry environments. In rooms where the air feels stale or overly conditioned, this can make a subtle difference over time. It is not something you measure in a moment, but something you begin to notice as the space becomes more comfortable to sit in. It does prefer a bit more light than some of the others, ideally bright but indirect. The soil should be kept lightly moist, and like many plants, it benefits from a steady routine rather than constant adjustment. Once it finds its place, it tends to grow evenly and without much trouble. There's also a visual shift that comes with it. A room with a palm in it feels less static. It feels lived in, a little more open, a little more breathable. At this point, it helps to pause and look at the bigger picture. It's easy to assume that adding one or two plants will completely change the air in a room, but the truth is a little more measured than that. Plants work gradually, and their effect becomes more noticeable when they're part of a wider approach rather than a single solution. If you're thinking in practical terms, a good starting point is to spread a few plants across the space rather than placing all your attention on one. A rough guide, often mentioned, is 1 or 2 plants for every 100 square feet. It doesn't need to be exact. The idea is simply to allow their effect to build rather than expecting it from a single source. There's also something to be said about placement. A plant near a window, one in a corner that feels still, another closer to where you spend most of your time. These small decisions shape how the room feels over time. It becomes less about decoration and more about balance. And perhaps more importantly, it shifts your attention. You begin to notice light, airflow, and how different parts of your home respond throughout the day. The plants become part of that awareness, not just something you set down and forget. None of this is about getting it perfect. It's about making small, steady improvements that add up quietly. Because in the end, that's how most meaningful changes happen, gradually and without much noise. Over time, what you begin to notice is not just the plants themselves, but the way the room feels around them. The air may seem a little lighter, the space a bit calmer. It is not a dramatic shift that happens all at once, but something that builds slowly, almost without your attention. You move through the room as you always have, and then one day, you realize it feels easier to be there. Part of that comes from the presence of something living in the space. Plants have a way of softening the edges of a room, breaking up the stillness, and reminding you that not everything needs constant effort to thrive. They grow at their own pace, steady and unhurried, and in doing so, they seem to change the rhythm of the space around them. Caring for them becomes a small routine, checking the soil, adjusting their position, giving them water when they need it. These are simple actions, but they create a quiet sense of connection. Do not chase perfect air or create an ideal setup overnight, but try to bring in small, thoughtful elements that improve the space over time. A few plants, chosen well and placed with care, can do more than you expect. If you are just starting out, it helps to keep things simple. There's no need to bring in every plant at once or to try and recreate what you might have seen elsewhere. 1 or 2 well-chosen plants, placed where they can settle in comfortably, are often enough to begin with. From there, you can add more over time, letting the space guide you rather than forcing a plan onto it. You may find that certain corners feel better suited than others. A spot near a window might call for something that enjoys light, while a quieter area can hold a plant that is more tolerant of shade. These small adjustments are not complicated, but they make a difference in how everything comes together. It also helps to pay attention to how much care you're willing to give. Some plants thrive with very little attention, while others respond better when you check on them more regularly. There's no right or wrong approach here. What matters is choosing plants that fit naturally into your routine, rather than adding something that feels like a task. Over time, as you become more familiar with them, the process becomes easier. You begin to notice what works, what needs adjusting, and what simply settles in without much effort, and your space begins to change slowly in a way you will come to love and appreciate. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. See you in the next video.